Subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. You won't want to miss a single twist of this wild tale. Picture this. Me, standing at the edge of my own life, screaming into the wind. I'm done with all of you. My kids, my grandkids, they drain me dry with their endless whining and backstabbing. And then poof, I was gone, vanished, into the abyss of my own making. What happened to me? Well, grab a cup of tea, because I'm about to tell you the most outrageous story you've ever heard. I'd had it. My daughter, Lisa, was shrieking at me over the phone about how I'd ruined her life by forgetting to send her a birthday card. Mind you, she hadn't called me in 6 months. My son, Greg, was no better, texting me demands for cash to fix his car, which he'd crashed racing his buddy to the burger joint. And don't get me started on the grandkids. Little terrors who turned my living room into a war zone of sticky fingerprints and broken vases. I was their punching bag, their ATM, their doormat. But that day, something snapped. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the chipped mug Greg had given me for Mother's Day. World's okayest mom, it said. Okayest? I'd raised those ungrateful brats single-handedly after their dad ran off with that yoga instructor. Okayest? I hurled the mug into the sink, watched it shatter, and decided right then and there. I was done. I grabbed my dusty old suitcase from the attic, the one with the wonky wheel from my honeymoon decades ago. I packed light, some jeans, a few blouses, and that red lipstick I hadn't worn since the 90s. Then I scribbled a note. Gone to find myself. Don't call. I left it on the counter, snatched my passport, and bolted out the door before I could second-guess myself. The airport was a blur. I bought the cheapest ticket I could find, one way to a little coastal town in Portugal I'd seen on a travel show once. As the plane took off, I felt this giddy rush, like I'd just robbed a bank and gotten away with it. The woman next to me, a stern type with a pinched face, kept side-eyeing me. You look like you're running from something, she said, her voice all gravelly. More like running to something. I shot back with a grin. She didn't smile, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't answering to anyone. When I landed in Portugal, the air smelled like salt and freedom. I checked into a tiny inn with peeling paint and a view of the ocean that made my heart do a little flip. The owner, a wiry guy named Paolo with a mustache that looked like it could sweep the floor, handed me a key and winked. You look like trouble, he said in broken English. Only the good kind, I replied, winking back. He laughed, and I thought, oh, this could be fun. That first night, I sat on my balcony, sipping cheap wine and listening to the waves crash. I didn't miss the chaos back home, not yet. But I should have known it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Drama follows me like a stray cat you accidentally feed once. The next morning, I got a text from Lisa. Where are you? Greg says you're dead. Call me now. I laughed out loud, imagining Greg pacing around my empty house, probably hoping I'd left the TV on so he could sell it. I turned off my phone and tossed it into my suitcase. Let them stew. I spent the day wandering the cobblestone streets, flirting with a fishmonger who called me Senora Bonita, and buying a ridiculous straw hat that made me look like a tourist cliché. I didn't care. I was free. But then, as I sat at a cafe sipping espresso, a shadow fell over my table. I looked up, and there he was, a man with gray hair, a crooked smile, and eyes that twinkled like he knew all my secrets. You're new here, he said, his voice smooth as velvet. I'm Carlos. Mind if I join you? I should have said no. I should have remembered that trouble always finds me. But instead, I smiled and gestured to the empty chair. Why not? I said. And that, my friends, was when the real chaos began. Carlos slid into the chair across from me like he owned the place, his crooked smile widening as he leaned in. You've got a story, don't you? He said, resting his chin on his hand like some charming detective from an old movie. His accent was thick, Portuguese with a hint of something else, Spanish maybe, and it rolled over me like warm honey. I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh or run. Maybe I do, I said, sipping my espresso and trying to play it cool. But I'm not here to spill it to strangers. Oh, we won't be strangers for long, he he replied, flagging down the waiter with a lazy wave. He ordered us both a glass of vinho verde, and before I could protest, the crisp white wine was plunked down in front of me. To new beginnings, he toasted, clinking his glass against mine. I raised an eyebrow but drank anyway. The wine was sharp and fizzy, and it went straight to my head. So, Carlos, I said, leaning back in my chair, what's your deal? You pick up every lone woman who stumbles into this town. Only the interesting ones, he said with a wink. And you, Senora, are a mystery wrapped in a straw hat. I snorted, adjusting the ridiculous hat I'd bought earlier. Flattery's nice, but I'm not here for a fling. I'm escaping. Escaping? His eyes lit up like I'd just handed him a treasure map. From what? A husband? A job? A dragon? Worse, I said, deadpan. My kids. He threw his head back and laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that made the old couple at the next table glare at us. Family, he said, wiping his eyes. The chains we can't break. I know this well. My sister calls me every day to complain about her husband. I tell her to leave him, but no, she'd rather scream at me instead. Sounds familiar, I muttered, thinking of Lisa's tantrums and Greg's whining. So what do you do, Carlos? Besides charm women at cafes. I'm a fisherman, he said, puffing out his chest a little. Best in the village. I could take you out on my boat tomorrow, show you the sea. I hesitated. A boat? With a stranger? My sensible side screamed no, but the part of me that had chucked that mug into the sink was yelling yes, yes, yes. Maybe, I said, playing coy. If you're lucky. He grinned like he'd already won. We spent the next hour trading stories, mine about the time Greg accidentally set fire to the garage trying to impress a girl, his about the time he caught a fish so big it nearly sank his boat. I was laughing so hard I almost forgot why I'd run away in the first place. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I'd turned it back on earlier, just to check the time, and now I regretted it. A flood of texts lit up the screen. Lisa, Greg, even my neighbor Mrs. Perkins, who'd probably sniffed out the drama like a bloodhound. MOM, where are you? This isn't funny. Lisa says you're in Europe. Are you insane? I groaned and shoved the phone back into my bag. Carlos raised an eyebrow. The chains are rattling, he said. More like strangling me, I replied. They think I've lost my mind. Have you? He asked, his tone teasing but his eyes serious. I smirked. Not yet, but I'm working on it. The next morning, I met Carlos at the docks. His boat was a rickety little thing, painted blue and named Esperanza, Hope. She's old but sturdy, he assured me as I climbed aboard, clutching my hat against the wind. The sea was calm, the sun glinting off the waves, and for a while, it was perfect. He pointed out hidden coves and told me tales of shipwrecks and lost treasure. I felt like a kid again, wide-eyed and free. Then the radio crackled. A voice in rapid Portuguese blared through, and Carlos's face darkened. What's wrong? I asked. My sister, he said, switching off the radio. Her husband's gone missing. Again. Probably drunk in a bar somewhere, but she's hysterical. Family, I said with a sigh. Always a mess. He nodded, steering us back toward shore. You should meet her. She'd like you. Another woman who's fed up. I laughed. Oh, I'm more than fed up. I'm a walking disaster. Good, he said, that crooked smile returning. Disasters are my specialty. By the time we docked, I was sunburned and buzzing with adrenaline. Carlos invited me to dinner at his sister's place, and against my better judgment, I said yes. What was I getting myself into? I had no idea. But as I walked back to the inn, I couldn't shake the feeling that this little escape of mine was about to get a lot messier and a lot more fun. The walk to Carlos's sister's house felt like stepping into a soap opera I hadn't auditioned for. The sun was dipping low, painting the village in shades of orange and pink, and I trailed behind Carlos, my sandals slapping against the uneven stones. He'd insisted I come along, saying, "You'll love Anna. She's a hurricane in a skirt." I wasn't sure if that was a promise or a warning. We arrived at a squat little house with a sagging roof and a front yard overrun with wildflowers. The door flew open before Carlos could knock, and out stormed a woman with wild black hair and eyes that could have melted steel. She was yelling in Portuguese, waving her arms like she was conducting an invisible orchestra. Carlos sighed and muttered, "Here we go." "Ana, calma," he said, holding up his hands. She ignored him, zeroing in on me instead. "Who's this?" she demanded, switching to English with a thick accent. "Your latest catch, Carlos? She looks too smart for you." I blinked, caught off guard, then laughed. "I'm just a stray he picked up at the cafe," I said. "No fishing required." Ana squinted at me, then cracked a grin. "Good. I like you already. Come in, come in. Don't let my brother's nonsense fool you." She grabbed my arm and yanked me inside, leaving Carlos to trail behind like a scolded puppy. The house smelled like garlic and regret. Ana shoved a glass of red wine into my hand and started ranting about her husband, Miguel. Gone again. Third time this month. I say, "Miguel, you stay out all night, you don't come back." But does he listen? No. He's probably face down in a ditch or flirting with some barmaid. "Maybe he's just lost," I offered, sipping the wine. It was strong enough to strip paint. "Lost?" Ana snorted. "He's lost his mind. That's what. And me. I'm the fool who keeps waiting." She flopped onto a faded couch, gesturing for me to sit. Carlos lingered by the door, looking like he'd rather be back on his boat. "Sounds like my kids," I said, settling beside her. Always expecting me to fix their messes while they blame me for everything. Anna's eyes lit up. "Yes, exactly. Ungrateful little. Wait, you have kids? And you're here? Alone?" "Ran away," I said with a shrug. "Left a note and everything." She clapped her hands, delighted. "Oh, I love this. You're my hero. Carlos, why didn't you tell me you found a runaway?" "Didn't get the chance," he grumbled, finally stepping inside. "You started yelling before I could breathe." Ana waved him off and turned back to me. "Tell me everything. Did they cry? Beg you to come back?" "They're still figuring out I'm gone," I said, grinning. "My daughter's probably planning my funeral to guilt me into calling." Ana cackled, and I decided right then that I liked her. She was loud, messy, and real, everything my life back home wasn't. We swapped stories over dinner, a chaotic spread of fish stew and crusty bread that Carlos had grudgingly helped prepare. I told her about Greg's car crash and Lisa's birthday meltdown. She countered with Miguel's habit of disappearing whenever the bills came due. By the time we'd polished off the wine, we were howling with laughter, and Carlos was shaking his head like he'd accidentally adopted two lunatics. "You two are trouble," he said, clearing the plates. "I should have left you at the cafe." "Too late now," Ana shot back. "She's mine. We're starting a club, Women Who Run From Idiots." "Count me in," I said, raising my empty glass. "First meeting's tomorrow." But the night took a turn when the door banged open, and in stumbled Miguel. He was a wiry guy with a patchy beard and a shirt half untucked, reeking of cheap beer. Ana leapt up, her laughter gone, replaced by a fury that could have leveled the house. "You," she roared, jabbing a finger at him. "Where have you been?" "I've been calling, crying." "Out," Miguel slurred, swaying on his feet. "Needed air." "Air." Ana grabbed a wooden spoon from the table and brandished it like a sword. "I'll give you air, you useless." Carlos stepped between them, hands raised. "Ana, stop. He's drunk. Let him sleep it off." She glared at Miguel, then at Carlos, then threw the spoon at the wall. It clattered to the floor as she stormed off to the kitchen, muttering curses. Miguel blinked at me, confused. "Who are you?" "The entertainment," I said dryly, and Carlos snorted. "Welcome to my family," he said, steering Miguel toward a chair before he could collapse. "This is normal. Feels like home," I replied, watching Ana bang pots in the kitchen. Part of me wanted to join her tantrum, smash something, scream, let it all out. But another part, the part that had flown across an ocean to escape, just sat back and enjoyed the show. As the night wound down, Carlos walked me back to the inn. The air was cool, the streets quiet except for the distant hum of the sea. "Sorry about that," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Anna's a lot." "I like her," I said.
"She's honest."
"Messy, but honest." He smiled, that crooked grin that was starting to grow on me.
"And you?
"Are you honest?" "Brutally," I said. "But I'm still figuring out what I'm honest about." He stopped walking, looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're not like anyone I've met," he said. "Good," I replied, stepping closer. I'd hate to be boring. For a second, I thought he might kiss me. The air crackled with that kind of tension you only see in movies. But then he just chuckled and said, "See you tomorrow, runaway." I watched him go, my heart doing a ridiculous little dance. What was I doing? Flirting with a fisherman in a foreign country while my kids probably had the cops searching for me? It was absurd. It was perfect. Back in my room, I checked my phone. 20 missed calls, a dozen texts. "Lisa. MOM, this isn't funny. Greg. You owe me for the car." I laughed, turned it off again, and fell into bed. Let them panic. I had a club to start with Anna, and maybe, just maybe, a fisherman to figure out. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of seagulls and the faint clatter of dishes from the inn's kitchen. My head was fuzzy from Anna's wine, but my spirits were high. I'd survived a night of family chaos that wasn't mine, and it felt like a victory. I threw on a sundress, something flowy I'd packed on a whim, and headed out to meet Carlos at the docks. He'd texted me at dawn. "Boat. 9 a.m. Bring your hat." When I got there, he was already on Esperanza, fiddling with a net that looked like it had seen better days. He waved me over, that crooked smile flashing in the sunlight. "Ready for round 2? He asked. "Only if you promise no drunk husbands this time," I said, climbing aboard with a little more grace than yesterday. "No promises," he replied, tossing me a life jacket. "But I'll try." The sea was choppier today, the boat rocking as we cut through the waves. Carlos pointed out a pod of dolphins in the distance, and I leaned over the edge, grinning like a fool. For a moment, I forgot about the mess I'd left behind, until my phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it back on last night, too curious to resist. Big mistake. It was a voicemail from Lisa, her voice shrill enough to pierce steel. "Mom, I can't believe you. Greg's freaking out. The grandkids are asking where you are, and I had to tell Mrs. Perkins you're not dead. Call me back, or I swear I'm hiring a detective." I deleted it mid-sentence, but the guilt gnawed at me. What if they really did think I was in trouble? "You okay?" Carlos asked, glancing over from the helm. "Fine," I lied, shoving the phone deeper into my bag. "Just family static." He nodded, like he understood more than I'd said. "Static's loudest when you're far away. It'll fade." I hoped he was right. We spent the morning fishing, or rather, he fished, and I tangled the line so badly he had to cut it free. "You're a natural," he teased, holding up the mangled net. "At chaos, maybe," I shot back, and he laughed. By noon, we'd caught enough fish for a small feast, and Carlos docked us at a secluded cove. He spread a blanket on the sand and unpacked a picnic, bread, cheese, and the fish he'd grilled right there on a portable stove. It was simple, perfect, and dangerously close to something I could get used to. "So," he said, slicing the bread with a pocket knife, "what's the plan, runaway? Stay here forever?" I chewed on a piece of fish, stalling. "I don't know. I didn't think past the plane ticket. Maybe I'll just drift until I figure it out." "Drifting's good," he said, "but it's better with company." I met his eyes, and there it was again, that spark. I could have leaned in, closed the gap, but instead I smirked and said, "You offering to be my anchor?" "Maybe," he replied, matching my tone. "Or maybe I'm the one drifting, and you're the shore." I laughed, loud and free. "Oh, you're smooth, fisherman. Too smooth." "Years of practice," he said with a wink. We were halfway through the meal when a shadow fell over us. I looked up, expecting a cloud, but it was Anna, hands on her hips, glaring like a storm about to break. "Carlos, you didn't tell me you were stealing her today." "You were busy yelling at Miguel," he said, unfazed.
"Sit. Eat."
She huffed but plopped down, snatching a piece of bread. Miguel's gone again. Left a note this time. Needs space.
Space.
I'll give him space, right off a cliff. I choked on my fish, trying not to laugh. Sounds like my escape note, I said. Maybe we're rubbing off on them. Good, Anna said, tearing into the bread like it was Miguel's face. Let them squirm. You sticking around, run away? Thinking about it, I said, glancing at Carlos. He just smiled, saying nothing. The afternoon slipped by in a haze of sun and banter. Anna roped me into her club, plotting ridiculous revenge schemes against Miguel. Nothing serious, just fantasies about mailing him fish heads or stranding him on a raft. Carlos rolled his eyes but played along, suggesting we add Greg and Lisa to the list. We'll send them a net, he said. Let them untangle their own mess. Deal, I said, and we all dissolved into laughter. But when I got back to the inn that night, the laughter faded. My phone was a battlefield, texts, voicemails, even an email from Greg titled MOM Seriously. I skimmed them. Lisa had called the cops, who told her I was an adult and could disappear if I wanted. Greg was threatening to sell my car to teach me a lesson. The grandkids, apparently, had drawn missing grandma posters. It was a circus, and I was the ringmaster who'd skipped town. I sat on my balcony, staring at the dark sea, torn between guilt and glee. Then a knock at the door jolted me upright. It was Carlos, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Thought you might need this, he said. How'd you know? I asked, letting him in. Guessed, he said, pouring. You've got that look, like you're about to bolt again. I took the glass, our fingers brushing. Maybe I am, or maybe I'm just tired of running. He sat beside me, close enough that I could smell the salt on his skin. Then stop, he said simply. Stay. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But as we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed again. Lisa, relentless as ever. I ignored it, but the spell was broken. Carlos saw it in my face and didn't push. We drank in silence, the night stretching out like a question neither of us could answer. The wine Carlos brought was gone by midnight, and so was the quiet between us. We'd moved from the balcony to the tiny table in my room, the sea breeze sneaking through the open window. He was telling me about the time he'd gotten lost in a storm, his boat spinning like a top, when my phone lit up again. I'd left it face up on the bed, a rookie mistake. Lisa's name flashed like a siren. Ignore it, Carlos said, his voice low, like he was daring me. I've been ignoring it, I replied, but my hand twitched toward the phone anyway. They're relentless. Then answer, he said, leaning back in his chair. Tell them you're alive and done. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't know my kids. They'd turn it into a 3-hour guilt trip. He shrugged. So, I hang up after 3 minutes. It was so simple, so him, that I almost did it. Instead, I grabbed the phone, muted it, and tossed it into a drawer.
There.
Out of sight, out of mind. Good choice, he said, his crooked smile creeping back. Now, where was I? Spinning in a storm, I prompted, settling into the story. But my mind is half there, half back home, wondering if Lisa was crying or Greg was plotting to pawn my furniture. Carlos must have sensed it, because he reached across the table and tapped my hand.
Hey.
You're here, not there. I met his eyes, warm and steady, and nodded.
Right.
Here. The next few days blurred into a rhythm I could have lived forever. Mornings on the boat with Carlos, afternoons plotting with Anna over coffee and pastries. She'd taken to calling me the runaway queen, and I wore it like a crown. Miguel showed up once, sheepish and sober, begging Anna to take him back. She threw a shoe at him and locked the door, but I caught her smiling later, like she was already planning his redemption arc.
Carlos, though, he was the real surprise.
He didn't push, didn't pry, just kept showing up with that grin and those quiet offers to stay. One night, as we walked along the beach, he stopped and pointed at the stars. See that one, he said, tracing a line in the sky. That's mine. Named it after my first boat. You can't name stars, I said, laughing. I can, he insisted. And I'm naming that one over there after you. I rolled my eyes, but my chest felt tight, like something was blooming I couldn't name. You're ridiculous, I said. Only for you, he replied, and this time, when the tension crackled, I didn't pull away. His lips brushed mine, soft and salty, and I kissed him back like I was 20 again, reckless and alive. But paradise doesn't last. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. Not Carlos's gentle knock. This was a battering ram. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing, and yanked it open. There stood Lisa, red-faced and furious, with Greg looming behind her like a sulky bouncer. Mom, Lisa shrieked, shoving past me into the room. Do you have any idea what you've put us through? I blinked, still half asleep. How did you? Mrs. Perkins saw your credit card charges. Greg cut in, crossing his arms. We flew out here to drag you home. Drag me? I laughed, incredulous. I'm not a lost dog. You're acting like one, Lisa snapped. Running off, ignoring us. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong, I said, my voice rising. For once, I'm doing what I want. They stared at me like I'd grown horns. Then Lisa's eyes narrowed. Who's that? She demanded, pointing at Carlos's jacket slung over a chair. Before I could answer, the door creaked open again, and there he was, Carlos, holding a bag of pastries, frozen mid-step. Bad time, he said. Who are you? Greg barked, stepping forward like he was ready to fight. Carlos, he said calmly, setting the bag down. And you're the kids, I'm guessing. Lisa's jaw dropped. Mom, are you shacking up with some random guy? He's not random, I said, he creeping up my neck. And I'm not shacking up. I'm living. Living. Greg scoffed. You're embarrassing us. The grandkids think you're dead. Then tell them I'm not. I shot back. Tell them I'm happy. They gaped at me, speechless for once. Carlos stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. You okay? He murmured. Yeah, I said, squeezing his fingers. I am. Lisa threw up her hands. Fine. Stay here with your fishermen, but don't expect us to clean up your mess when you come crawling back. I won't, I said, and I meant it. Greg muttered something about selling my car, and they stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there, trembling, until Carlos pulled me into a hug. You did it, he said. Did what? I mumbled into his shoulder. Cut the chains. I laughed, shaky but real. Guess I did. We ate the pastries in silence, the sea humming outside. Later, Anna showed up, cackling when I told her the story. You're a legend, she said. They'll write songs about you. They'll write complaints, I replied, but I was grinning. That night, I stood on the balcony with Carlos, his arm around me, the stars bright above. My phone was off, my kids were gone, and for the first time, I wasn't running. I was staying messy, ridiculous, and free. And if Lisa and Greg ever came back, well, I'd have Anna's shoe ready.